And joining us now from outside the court, MSNBC chief legal correspondent and host of The Beat, Ari Melber, and NBC News senior legal correspondent and Weekend Today co-anchor Laura Jarrett. Both were in the court for the arguments. Laura, I want to ask you first, what struck you? Because we've all been talking about how there was surprising unanimity on the fundamental fact that there was ambiguity in the statute, rather in the 14th Amendment, and that should favor Donald Trump staying on the ballot.
What struck me similarly, Andrea, is that all 9 of them seem to be looking for a way out of this. They seem to be searching for a way to say that Colorado got it wrong. Now, how they reach that ultimate conclusion, I don't think that I'm in a position to predict that, but they seem to be bristling at the idea of a single state being able to disqualify the Republican frontrunner in a national election. All of them really hammering that point. Justice Kavanaugh at one point saying that it would be essentially voter disenfranchisement to a significant degree. Chief Justice Roberts calling it a pretty daunting consequence. Even Justice Kagan hammering home the same idea. And so I think all of them seem troubled by that idea, which is pretty amazing if you think about it, because that's not an argument about the text of the 14th Amendment. That's not an argument about the history. That's an argument about consequences and political consequences, which for a court that in many instances tries to sort of look at the original interpretation of things and focus on those types of aspects, they seem much more focused today on the fallout of this potential decision.
Ari, I'm wondering, were there any surprises for you in listening to these arguments?
I don't know if it's a full surprise, but we definitely saw a real emphasis on pragmatism, as we just heard. And at one point, you had Justice Jackson citing Justice Kavanaugh to basically say, isn't he right? Isn't this unworkable? Isn't that not really what was intended? And so we saw some cross-agreement there that's interesting, and I think could be a good thing for the country anytime the court can substantively and in terms of perception, be understood as doing something other than raw partisan politics, or trying to decide who benefits. I'll just say it was very clearly a bad day for the Colorado side and a very good day for either candidate Trump, or if you want to put it differently, any candidate who would rather have a more open access to the ballot. And that was that other point that I think really came through and is one of the headlines out of this, that beyond text on history, and you can go through dueling history about what does the office or mean and all that stuff, there was a real awareness here that you could have a retaliatory year of this in different states with different judges doing different things unless the court comes through. And it's very tough to do predictions based on questions. But based on the questions, it seemed like there were at least 7 votes against Colorado and 4 ballot access for candidates.
Laura, I've got to tell you, just sitting and listening to this was fascinated on so many different levels, learning so much just by listening to it. But you were inside, both of you were inside. There was at least 2 moments when there was an audience reaction to different comments, questions that were asked. What were the dynamics like inside? Take us inside there.
It's interesting. You know, we had wondered whether the former president would actually show up himself, but his presence was certainly felt. Although I found it fascinating that it was until 11 a.m. I marked down that we started actually talking about the insurrection or attempted insurrection. We were not there for a very long time, even though really at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. The only reason they kicked him off the ballot was because of what he did on January 6th and leading up to it. We wouldn't be here but for January 6th, and yet we were not talking about January 6th. But it was interesting in the room, Jose, you had lawmakers. You obviously had the Colorado Secretary of State. You had, obviously, supporters of Donald Trump like Jason Miller and others. And so it was an interesting mix in the room, even though the former president himself was not there.
Yeah, I would echo that and say it was fascinating to be inside. The Supreme Court hearing room is always a very pristine and special place in the halls of American government. It has different rules than most of the other parts, right? You don't have a C-SPAN camera in there. You don't have any cameras in there. We come out with our notes. And yet at the same time, I would remind everyone, this is the first time that these aspects of the insurrection and Donald Trump's alleged conduct and whether he did or didn't deliberately incite that violence has come up in this hall, in these hallowed halls. And we're standing here looking into a camera at you guys, but we are across the street from the Capitol. which was illegally stormed, where a sedition has now been convicted, not against Donald Trump himself, but against others. And so this is all, if you're in the room and in the neighborhood, this is all where it went down. This is all what happened. And so while Colorado may have, in one sense, be on the path to, best we can tell, skeptical questioning, if not a wide loss today in their effort to invoke what happened as a means to bar him from the ballot, this is the first and probably not the last time that this court is going to deal with those related issues. And so it's all very much physically right here in the attack that was across the street, in the justices thinking about this, and those wider concerns of how do we go forward as a democracy honoring the rule of law when so many of these issues are both legally and for the voters not resolved yet. And maybe they'll be resolved in November if that's one of the things people vote on.
Guys, I would just add, it was interesting to hear the justices on several different occasions bring up the fact that the former president hasn't actually been charged with inciting an insurrection, but there's a disqualification clause for that too. And if the prosecutors had wanted to charge him with that, they could have tried that, and then there would be no question that he'd be disqualified from office. They sort of went through that and said, well, wait a minute, there's actually another part of the law at issue here where you could try to disqualify him and for those grounds, but prosecutors haven't charged him with that, much less has he been convicted of that. And so they were trying to use that to say, look, there is another avenue here to disqualify him. You just haven't chosen the right path.